these, of course, medals were attributed also to various sports. So started off with 33, 25, 17, and of course went slightly up to 21. So why does the Kenyan sports performance seem to be on the decline? Of course, we have external factors such as the political realms and political arena. But honestly, I have a deep belief that it's due to the fact that the rest of the world is embracing sports science, and while we are not yet fully embraced it, so we are not following a scientific approach to training. So that's basically what I'm going to take you through today. So what is sports science, for those who are asking? So I'll give you a brief overview of what sports science and sports medicine is, then just dive into what that looks like in a real-world setting. So when we're looking at the definition of science, let's start off with the definition of science, which is the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systems, study of structure and behavior of the physical, natural world through observation and experiment. So to just break that down, this basically means that you first do an experiment and then basically study the structure and the behavior of the physical and natural world. And once you have been able to gather that evidence, you try and apply it in a real world setting. So for me, that's what sports science means to me. Basically what we do is systematically study how the human body works during sports, through observation, experiment, and apply these principles in the field. So basically, it's evidence-based. If you've heard about the word evidence-based, it means that research is done, and after research is done, we try and apply this in principle, like in a sports setting. So I want us to start looking at sports, not just as a recreational activity that people do for fun, but it's a science. How does a human body work? And how do we apply these scientific principles? Because why is it that other fields of study, medicine, engineering, all these other fields of study are governed by science and evidence, while we decide that sports is not? So basically, that's what it means to me. And then sports medicine is a treatment and prevention of injuries related to sports. Athletes are very unique. So the way in which we manage their injuries is also very unique. We don't give them the same level of care as we would someone who's not an athlete, because sometimes you decide that you're going to operate, not operate. What kind of surgical procedure would you perform? And again, looking at any other medical support required by athletes, be it when they're sick, be it how the day-to-day living. So basically, I decided not to go too much into the jargon. So I decided to pick a personal friend of mine who was a Kenyan national 7s and 15s rugby player. So basically, this is an athlete. And what is sports science? So what does sports science mean to this athlete? So this athlete wakes up in the morning. We need to have monitored their sleep, monitored their recovery status, finding out how many hours of REM sleep, how many hours of deep sleep, what is their heart rate variability in the morning, how is their nervous system responding in the morning before they start their day. When this athlete goes and has their breakfast, we need to find out, have we calculated the amount of protein they need? Because if this athlete is 100 kilos, we're looking at maintaining their protein intake at about 1.6 to about 2 grams per kilogram. Is that measured and broken down during the day? What micronutrients are they getting? Are they getting enough magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, vitamin C, some of the performance nutrients, creatine? Is all this calculated? So that is part of sports science, is being able to look at the nutritional breakdown of such an athlete. When this athlete goes for training, is the coach following coaching science principles? Is the coach being able to understand what motor development is? How does this athlete learn how to do a pass? How does this athlete's psychological perspective, how does someone learn? How does someone apply principles of rugby to training? Is the coach teaching them about running mechanics? Because I know that's something that's maybe not taught quite a lot, but there's an ideal way that someone should be running. which is called now the running biomechanics. So biomechanics is the physics of sports. So looking at the angles, looking at the forces, are they running in an effective and efficient manner? Are we measuring the athlete load through the use of GPS systems? So how many high distance runs have they done? How many sprints have they done? What distance have they covered during training? What was their heart rate during training? Were they pushing themselves appropriately? Well, this is all data. We're collecting comprehensive data on these athletes. The strength and conditioning coach, are they following the scientific principles of training, of progression, overload, specificity, or are they just putting them in the gym and letting them do anything? So it needs to be specific, and we need to follow the scientific principles of training. Are they doing an injury prevention session at the beginning of the season? So basically, how are they planning their season? Are we testing these athletes? Are we profiling the athletes? Basically, are we measuring their endurance, their speed, their power, their strength, their body composition? How much body fat, muscle mass do they have? How strong are they? How powerful are they? Are we measuring their sweat rate and hydration needs, or are we just giving them water and telling them to just drink the way they want? Are we psychologically profiling them, determining what kind of athlete this is? Is this, what kind of psychological cues does this athlete respond to? Is it visualization? Is it positive self-talk? So creating also a psychological profile. Are we monitoring injury status and muscle recovery? Are we monitoring muscle soreness? Are we being able to find out how many injuries is this athlete getting throughout the year? How are we managing it? Are they returning to the sport quickly, or are they taking longer to respond? So being able to create a profile. Are we taking blood tests and biomarkers on these athletes, on their how the internal organs are working? How is their kidney functions? How is their liver functioning? How is the micronutrients? So basically checking vitamin D status, checking intracellular magnesium levels, checking basically the important blood markers for human performance, from creatinine to all those other blood or biomarker testing. Are we, when this athlete goes and plays a game in Hong Kong or in the States, are we collecting game statistics? How many meters did he cover with the ball? How many tackles? How many offloads? How many infringements has this athlete been able to undertake? So being able to create a number, getting a number for this athlete. Are we doing video and tactical sessions with this athlete every time after? So are we watching the video, telling the athlete, these are some of the infringements you did, these are some of the bad or good tackles you were able to do. This is the way in which if we are playing South Africa, how does South Africa play in a tactical sense, and how do we analyze the data? So basically what we end up with is an athlete profile from the technical, tactical, physical, psychological, medical perspective. So are we able to find out what the awareness is? What is their speed, strength? And being able to create a profile for this athlete so that you're not guessing. I normally say, if you're not using data, in most cases, even though you have intuition, you are not objectively, you're sort of guessing. So you need to be able to tell that this athlete was here at this stage, and now we have gotten them to here. And when you lose a game, you can actually determine, why did you lose the game? Was it because of the number of infringements? Was it because of the fatigue levels of the athletes? Was it because of different scenarios within the game? So basically that's what sports science is putting data and you using a systematic and evidence-based approach to training. So for me, I just wanted to take a bit of a sidebar and say, what can be done for us to be able to take sports to the next level in Kenya through a scientific approach? We have to collect data and map out the entire sporting landscape in Kenya. Because right now we keep saying, we are not doing well in sports because of politics. Oh, it's because we do not have enough fields. How do you know it's because of politics? How do you know it's because of we do not have enough fields? Have you mapped out the number of fields in Kenya? Have you mapped out the number of facilities that are there in the country, their state? the number of sports that it can, the number of people it can house, the sports that it can do. Have we mapped out the coaches' level of qualifications? So in football, how many level A, B, C, and D coaches do we have? And out of those, how many of them are coaching which teams? Do we have an athlete database? So do we have a database of all our athletes, the number of athletes, their achievements, their levels? Do we have a breakdown of the number of academies, the number of clubs, the number of sporting programs, development programs, grassroots programs that are out there? Do we have sport governing bodies and their impact? So do we know how impactful the Kenya Rugby Union, Kenya Football, the FKF is, the Kenya Swimming Federation, Athletics Kenya? Do we have empirical data determining the efficiency and effectiveness of these governing bodies? Do we have backgrounds on sports educational programs? Do we know where are our coaches being trained? Are they being trained by international bodies? Are they being trained at Kenyatta University under me? Are they being trained at Masinde Muliru? How many programs, how many sporting programs are there in terms of education? How many sporting competitions do we have? What level of competitors do we have at that aspect? So collecting data and using a scientific approach, because without data, we cannot determine what the issues are. And if we are to create an implementation strategy, we cannot monitor what is happening on the ground. And that's why, like at my academy, we monitor the athletes' data from as young as 4 years old, growth and maturation status. We measure their speed, strength. We measure psychological parameters so that we're able to make decisions based on data. And I think the government or the Kenya should also go in that direction. We need to create policies. Why is it that the sporting industry in Kenya does not have policies? All we do is, if a coach is employed from abroad to come and coach the Kenya team, do we have a youth development and talent identification policies? I can tell you for a fact we do not. We do not have a long-term athlete development program determining how do we get these athletes from the time they're 4 or 5 years old, how do we get them to the Olympics? What is the road to the Olympics? What is the road to world championships look for them? When we're identifying talent at grassroots levels, are we just looking at a game and picking athletes because they scored 10 goals? Or are we looking at specific technical, physical parameters for some of these athletes? Do we have an elite and high performance policy? In football and rugby, we always employ coaches from abroad. And these coaches from abroad come with a blueprint that they have picked from their countries. Do we have a current blueprint for our own athletes? Have we profiled our own athletes? Do we know which the different physical and characteristics of our athletes in Kenya? We do not. So how are we able to thrive and continue thriving if a new coach comes in, they will come in with the new policies, and it takes about 10 to 15 years. I mean, it takes about 2 to 3 years for a coach to be able to come and implement some of those policies. Do we have an injury prevention, surveillance, and management policy? So how often do we collect data on injured athletes? Is there a central database to determine the number of injured athletes, the type of injuries we sustain? Like in the Premier League, the KPL, do we know what the major injury is? How can we mitigate that injury? We do not have such policies. And we do not have general SOPs and policies that govern sporting bodies, even from selection criteria to basically all policies across the board. So we need to invest in research, innovation, and technology in sports. Because how can we determine, like I'm in swimming, and we do not know what the current status is. So why is it that our athletes are not able to reach Olympic level? We need to do research and find out why. And once we do research, we need to innovate and determine what are some of the things we can do so that we can be able to progress. And finally, we need technology because we need to be able to gather data on some of these parameters on athletes and track it over time. We need to integrate high-performance sports programs in schools and universities because that is where the day-to-day sporting bodies, I mean the sporting activities take place. We need to develop a high-performance sports institute. We currently do not have a high-performance sports center in Kenya. So how are we able to do research? How are we able to take these athletes to the next level? And on top of even having this high-performance center, having a building does not make that a high-performance center. It's the people behind it. Have they invested and trained people to be the ones to run the programs within there? Sports scientists, people in sports medicine, sports management people. We also need to register a board that governs sports practitioners in Kenya. Because how is it that other professions have a governing body? The doctors have a governing body, and you have to register each year. And you need to attend continuous professional development. You need to acquire points over the year for you to be able to be licensed as a doctor. So why is it that in sports we are not doing the same? Is it because it's a pastime? Is it because it's something that we do for fun? Again, we need to do that. We need an advisory committee comprising of the best professionals. So I keep seeing advisory committees from the Ministry of Sports that have been set up. And I usually wonder sometimes, who are these people, the qualified ones, to be making decisions about sports in Kenya? So we're talking about sports scientists, people in sports medicine, coaching and refereeing, sports nutrition, sports psychology, sports marketing, sports management, doping, sports journalism, and physical education. So we need to have a body that the government can always go to and ask for advice. Because I can tell you currently, even with the top governing bodies in Kenya, majority of them do not have the expertise to be able to give some of this advice. So as I said, I know I was given about 15 minutes. So I decided to rush through basically an overview of sports science, sports medicine, what that looks like day to day for an athlete, and what are some of the things we can do to propel ourselves to the next level. Thank you.
That was very interesting. From the age of 4, monitoring people even in their sleep. As you can see, sports science is very, very interesting. And it's something that must be pursued very seriously, especially in a country like Kenya, whereby we actually have very good sports talent, and we actually have sports that can be taken very seriously as an industry. Now, the thing with the Kenya International Sportsman Festival is that we are always people who are concerned with all things that are sports and all things that are film. And basically, we do have the panel sessions, we have the lecture sessions, and we also have films from various countries, various nations. Also, the good thing is that this is the 5th year of something that began in 2018. This was an initiative that was birthed by the Safinas Foundation, and Safinas also supports Sports Monthly magazine, which has been published as a complementary concern for the past close to 22 years by Safinas Foundation. And you see they take sports very, very seriously. No surprise, of course, being that the people behind Safinas Foundation is the Karim family, a sporting dynasty. Yes, sometimes dynasty is a good thing, especially a sporting dynasty, 3 generations. This is in the sports of tennis and cricket. And our chairman is Mr. Asif Karim, who is the chairman of the Kenya International Sportsman Festival himself. And I believe the chairman is somewhere in the studio and might be joining us for a bit of a tete-a-tete. But until he does that, let me just say that this initiative was actually birthed out of something that happened in the chairman's life. He actually had an opportunity to attend a sports film festival. I think it was in India, and that's where he got the idea that, wait a minute, if they can do it here, then why can't we do it back home in Kenya, East Africa, especially we being a sporting nation. You saw earlier on the DFS film on Safari Rally. We also have a very good rugby culture here as well, a cricket culture as well, even golf. And of course, for those of you who are that way inclined, we also have that a very rich history of horse racing at Ngong Racecourse. And at one point in time, we also had the go-karting with the golf cart, and we also have a history of mountain climbing as well. And in case you didn't know, Kenya is actually a very, very, very sports-based nation. We also have things like, in terms of sports tourism, we have things like whitewater rafting. We also have hang gliding, people jumping out of aircraft, that kind of thing. So we're a sporting nation as a whole. And that's why Kenya International Sportsman Festival is here, to bring all these things here to you, to the fore. Some of these movies might bring you some very interesting things like, American bull riding, skiing as well. We take cognizance of everything that is sports. So it's not just the things that we do, on a general basis, but even, did you know, for instance, that sometimes there are a few Kenyans who actually participate in the Winter Olympics. Mm-hmm. We also have an ice skating rink here in Nairobi, Kenya, at a place called Panari, which is near the airport. So we do all these things with sports in mind, and also the fact that we're a competitive nation, and we believe in Kenyans being the first, or Kenyans being Kwanza, as we say, Kenya Kwanza. So Kenya National Sportsman Festival will bring all these things to you in the next 4 days. Today is the 27th of October, 2022. We're going up until Sunday, the 30th of October, 2022. And now we are ready for the next thing that is on the program. Actually, we're coming to you live. So live, expect anything. So coming to you live, I believe we have, we have a movie lined up? Indeed we do. And I believe it's from Australia, and it's the Footsies. Enjoy.